is there a hospitality moment that you can remember where you really felt hospitality?
We went to a restaurant in Chicago called Boca. This is a Michelin-starred restaurant. We went there, had an amazing dinner, tasting menu, the whole nine. At the very end of the meal, they gave us our doggy bag. And then the server came by with 2 little mini loaves of banana bread. And they were like, this is for you guys for breakfast tomorrow. This is for y'all. It just was so just revolutionary for me. And this was something that we realized the next morning. And I remember we were like, oh, the banana bread. And then we enjoyed our banana bread with the coffee and got us talking about the meal again and got us talking about that night again. And I reminiscing of, and it just kind of pulled back this experience and kind of extended it a little further. And it's just such a cool, simple way to realize it's like, yeah, this is not a transactional experience. This isn't like we're done here. Bye. If I see you again, I see you again. But this was like this motion of like, even after we're done, already paid my check, let's just continue this experience, enjoy it even longer. And I just really thought was so cool.
Austin Community Capital. This show is a celebration of the spirit of Austin, Texas, honoring our past, engaging our present, and building our future together. Although it's not the last time.
CK, I'm really excited to be having a conversation with you today. I want to give an intro and just context for how I know you. I reached out randomly and you suggested we meet up at Teal House, great local spot. And just immediately I felt, man, I'm talking to an old friend. That was kind of the feeling I had. And then a really fun experience. We're at Teal House and the manager comes by and just drops off some breakfast tacos. Like, hey, potential new menu item, let me know what you think. And like, you pass them over to me. They're just such a fun contact for meetings. So thank you for being here. Really excited.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you, man. I'm happy to be here. Good.
So I think, let me start with this question. And this is something I felt in our first meeting, but you're a guy who just embodies hospitality and warmth. How would you define hospitality?
You know, I have to kind of borrow it from people that have said this before. You know, hospitality, and it's like I've shifted. You know, when I first started in this industry, we used to call it the service industry. You know, it's one of those things that are you in the service industry or the, you know, bar industry or whatever, restaurant industry. And then it shifted over to myself even referring it to the hospitality industry, because what I realize is they say the service is kind of what you do for someone or what you're doing, providing a service for somebody. And then hospitality is how you make someone feel. Mm-hmm. And that kind of embodies a lot of things. I mean, that is all the way up to how you greet somebody. That's how you send them off, what you send them off with. You know, even things that have nothing to do with your business can be part of the hospitality aspect of it. And so for me, hospitality really extends to just how you carry yourself in interaction with other people. And if you make them feel like they're how you want to make them feel, or how you feel like they should feel. And I think that that's what has really kind of honed in and locked into that concept. And I really like that.
You prompted a question that I'd be curious, is there a hospitality moment that you can remember where you really felt hospitality, or a moment that you created?
You know, I tell this story a lot, and I'll want to give props where it's due. A few years ago, and again, it's just something, I don't want to say it clicked something differently, but it's just something that was really cool, which was we went to a restaurant in Chicago called Boca. It was incredible. You know, a friend of mine's uncle is actually the chef owner over there, and he treated us so well, and an amazing dinner. You know, this is a Michelin-starred restaurant, and it was my wife and I at the time was just my girlfriend then. But when we went there, I had an amazing dinner, tasting menu, the whole nine. You know, I go to Chicago and just eat through that city. It's one of my favorite cities in the world. And at the end of the meal, I remember they came by, gave us our little. We had a little bit of some leftovers. You know, and they just had little touches everywhere. And the part that resonated with me was at the very end of the meal, they gave us our doggy bag. Our check came back. And then the server came by with 2 little mini loaves of banana bread. And they were like, this is for you guys for breakfast tomorrow. This is for y'all. and it just really like, it just was so just revolutionary for me in my brain. It was just something that really struck, was this notion of like, a lot of people, their dinner experience or, it just ends. Kind of you finish and then you're on to the next thing and you're on to the next thing and whatever it is and your next plan or whatever, and just keep it moving. And this was something that we realized the next morning. I went down after the hotel, went downstairs, grabbed coffee for Monica and I, and then I remember like we were like, oh, the banana bread, and then we went and grabbed them, and enjoyed our banana bread with the coffee, and got us talking about the meal again, and got us talking about what we were talking about that night again, and got us talking about reminiscing about so far how the trip was going, and it just kind of pulled back this experience and kind of extended it a little further. And it's just such a cool, simple way to realize it's like, yeah, it's not even like, this is not a transactional experience. This isn't like we're done here, bye. If I see you again, I see you again. But this was like this motion of like, even after we're done, already paid my check, we're not giving you, and I'm not trying to sell you anything else. It's just continue this experience, enjoy it even longer. And it just was something that I just really thought was so cool.
I love that. And that's such a beautiful illustration of that definition you gave, that it's a feeling.
Yeah.
And this was a very simple way, banana bread, to give you guys a feeling.
And there's something really like just classic about that, right? I mean, it's just kind of like, I think that's where, I always joked about how, if I had a magic wand and was able to like open a restaurant to where really to execute it at a certain level, but not have to charge anybody for it, like to just be able to run it like almost like a nonprofit or something like that. Like it would be so great, because there's just something very warm about that. And there's something very, I don't know, there's something very primitive about that. It's like, I think I've said this in a couple other conversations before, which is like, if you really kind of dig deep, the origin of even food service or anything like that, the notion of sharing food with somebody, like in a scarcity time, in a time maybe before grocery stores, in a time before anything, it's like, that might have been a very valuable resource. And so for me to come in and share food with you, it was like a very symbolic of this, like, this is a limited thing for us. And so to share it with you means a lot. And I think that you'll see that across cultures, this notion of sharing food. I mean, Chinese culture, we talk about how we don't really say like, how are you? We don't say, how are you doing? We ask, have you eaten yet? I think that's it's in our vernacular. Like you literally say, somebody I'll run into my aunt somewhere, and then, have you eaten yet? It's like, there's a question, that Soulful is like, have you eaten rice today? Like, have you eaten anything? And just let's check that basic human need off and see if we can kind of do that. And that's been ingrained in me since the jump, and so I always thought that that's really beautiful.
Say that phrase one more time.
Soulful means like, Soulful. Yeah. Like, it's interesting. Like, like Su is eat, but when we say Soulful, it refers to eating a meal, but it literally means eat rice. I mean, that's how ubiquitous, like that's how centralized rice is to the culture. But it literally, is like, have you eaten rice today? Like, have you eaten, and so yeah, I think that's a very common, I mean, it goes across the culture. I think you talk to anybody who grew up in that kind of immigrant experience or in that kind of cultural experience, they'll tell you the same thing. But it is, I think that spans a lot of different cultures as to like when you're greeting somebody for the first time, like sharing food, breaking bread, offering a beverage or something like that. That comes, I think, deeply rooted to some psyche in the back that shows that it's like an abundance kind of thing. It's like here, like you've just traveled, you might be thirsty, you might be hungry. Like here, this is a basic human need, come out of the rain, have some food, that kind of thing. It just feels like it's the core of caring for somebody is to take care of someone's basic human need, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that reference to your family and to the Chinese culture that you were influenced by. Like, what were some notable things about your upbringing that really shaped you?
I think that, I don't think that is unique to us, but I do feel that our family personified it a lot, which is like we were always a very giving family for everything. It was, arguably some level of a love language that translates into kind of an acts of service and in a gift giving and stuff. But I just remember as a kid, like even when we're at the grocery store and my mother would pick out a little thing of cookies or some fruit or something like that. And I'd get all excited because I'm like, oh, we get to have cookies at the house or whatever. I get home and like, are we gonna eat these cookies? And she's like, no, that's actually for, my hairdresser. She got me in at a last minute and she wasn't, we didn't have room. So I bought her some of these to make sure that she feels appreciated for that. Or, hey, your so-and-so's teacher this is their birthday and I wanted to send them some oranges or whatever it is. And so she was just so thoughtful constantly and effortlessly, and really there wasn't a lot of pomp and circumstance to it. It wasn't like this thing of like, oh man, we've got to go do this because, it's a huge deal. And it's interesting because I think back to it and it's like, there's not a lot of like rapping, and there wasn't this like show of it. It was just this kind of thing where, it was very much of like just anytime there's an opportunity to, especially if somebody already like showed their, generosity or anything like that, there's this instantaneous reciprocation. And this is like this thing, it's like this ingrained in me is this kind of this need to clear my ledger, right? It's like anytime anybody's ever done anything for me in that way, like there's something that I'm like, man, I've got to remember to make sure that I think about this person. And so I just remember that level of generosity just kind of flowing through at all times, even starting from, as early as I can remember. But yeah, that's something that I just remember. It's so weird how it clicks like so deeply, but this like a box of cookies that I thought were for us. And then she's like, no, this was actually for, somebody else that did something nice for me. And I just want to make sure that they know they feel appreciated. And that just locked in. And it's something that was a core memory of mine. So
I love that. And I'm hearing like a really fun connection of what your mom was doing, that expression of hospitality, to then you experiencing pretty much the same thing at the Chicago restaurant.
Yeah.
Like simple gift, doesn't have to be crazy, but given thoughtfully and from the heart. And I think, let's bring back the frequent gift culture to what if we care about it.
You know what it is? It's interesting, like, and again, I'm gonna destroy this because it's been ages since I've even read the book. But this notion of gift giving for me, the way that I kind of break down this notion of gifts for me, at least, the value itself, I don't think is in the item, right? What it is that there's this notion that you took a second, it took you a moment to think about that person. In this day and age, right, we talk about how it's interesting how communications. I was talking to my son who's 13, and he's texting his friends, and he's just talking about. I was just talking about like he was saying how much screen time he was on, like how much he was on texts and these shows, like you're on text messaging for an hour last week or whatever it was, and he was like, well, it's like how much time did you guys spend? I was like, well, obviously we didn't have cell phones then. And I said, but it's like, that's nothing. I mean, comparatively, you're sending a text message every once in a while, but I was like, we used to spend hours on the phone. Like we used to like just be on the phone,
talking about nothing,
tethered to a wall, and talk on the phone till all hours until we got yelled at by our parents, to get off the phone, go to sleep. But like, so as communication has become more accessible, faster, more efficient, and I think you and I talked about a little bit at our coffee, we've taken it for granted. And so what ends up happening is like, you think about it, like now, how often do we even reach out to the people that we care for or care about? We know that they're instant away. I mean, this person could be living in Guam and I could text and they would receive it like instantly. Like how often do we take that for granted? Like back in the day when we were younger, I mean, I remember when I had to call overseas to our family in Taiwan, it was this big production because in order for it was like the international phone call was $1.50 a minute, unless you bought a phone card or something, a prepaid thing that turned it to 25 cents a minute. And because of the time change, we had to wake up at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, so that we can call, our aunt and uncle to say Happy Chinese New Year or whatever it was. And there's this big production to it because it just took that much planning. And now, I can literally text somebody in Taiwan. It would feel like they're right in the room, where I FaceTime them and they're literally in the same room with us instantaneously. And it's just one of those things where we take that for so much granted that, like, there's probably friends that you care about, that you legit consider your friends. And then you're just like, it's probably been weeks or months since you've reached out to them. But I don't know, it's like this kind of weird way where you're like, well, I know I can reach out anytime. They're available right there. And so it's like one of those things where I've realized the intentionality of it all is, if you happen to like kind of dance across my mind at any given moment of the day, if I have the opportunity to, I try to reach out. If I end up having, I've got some friends who are better at this than I am, and I'm better at this for some friends than they are, or whatever it is. But, when we say, hey, we should get lunch sometime, like that, I don't treat that like a filler word. Like, I don't treat that as one of those things like that. Let's get lunch. It's like, all right, cool. Let's get it on the calendar. Let's book it even 3 weeks from now, blah, blah, blah. It's like, even booking this time, I know that you had to follow up a couple times. There's some stuff going on in my life that took some priority, but it was like, no, you get it down, get it on the calendar and make it happen. And it's like, but we should treat our friendships with that level of intentionality. I think that it's one of those things. I don't listen to APD, whatever it is, but I'm on the phone all the time in my car. Like, if I'm stuck in traffic, you can bet that I'm trying to call someone or make use of that time to connect with people, because I'm like, man, there's so many people that I haven't spoken to in a while, or whatever it is, that we get kind of lost in this ease, this convenience. And then you end up going, a year and a half, and then realizing it's like, man, my child is 3 years old. You haven't even met her yet. And you know what's going on. And like, well, it's like life gets busy. And so now the irony of it all is, these things that we used to just do all the time, just get together because what else could we do? Now has been replaced by, well, I saw your kid's birthday party, so it looked like fun, and I know what's going on in your life, and you know what's going on in my life, so I feel like we're connected. And it's like, not really, we're not really even spending that kind of time together. And I think that people need to do that more.
This show is supported by Loyal Home Concierge. You can take a company public, but you just found a scorpion in the guest room. Welcome to Austin. We'll handle it. LoyalHomeConcierge.com.
I love that encouragement. And just to kind of play back a couple of things I think is great encouragement for folks tuning in. Like, if you think of someone, reach out. Take that as a reminder and opportunity to utilize the many communication tools at our disposal, and then be the initiator. Jump in and make the thing happen, and be a person of your word. You state an intention to connect and honor that. I think that really...
Yeah, and I think even so, and I think you should let yourself, your priorities speak, right? There's a quote that I'm pretty sure it's Emerson. I'm not entirely sure, but it's, what you do speaks so loudly, I cannot hear what you say, right? And it's this quote that resonates with me in so many aspects of life. But what it does is also, like, some of this time, like your unconscious or like subconscious level of priority or how you feel when you think about somebody or anything, like those ways that you measure out your priorities will tell you where you're at with that person's relationship, right? Where you're at with that friendship. And it's like, not that it's good or bad. I think that everyone ebbs and flows, and I think that relationships ebb and flow, and I think that it's necessary, and I think that it's very normal, and we shouldn't take that personally necessarily. But if realizing that makes you feel some type of way, then it's beholden to you to like to change that, to fix that, right? It's if you what I mean by that, it's like this notion of, man, I haven't talked to that person in a while. And do I feel like, it's okay, I haven't talked to that person in a while, it's no big deal? Or I feel kind of bad. And man, I wish I'd talked to that person more. And then like kind of feel that, like kind of like lean into that feeling and go, no, I need to change that because I don't like living in that space with this particular relationship. And that's what I mean. And it should speak the other way too. Like, I think a natural progression of things is friendships that ebb and flow, like we said, and then sometimes they just kind of flow out of your life and it's done. And so a lot of times that's fine, where you feel something and you're like, I haven't spoken to that person in a while, and you're like, yeah, it's okay. I'm sure they're doing okay. Like I don't have the time or space to deal with that right now, or the time or space to support that friendship or that relationship at the same time. And that's, again, I don't think there's any pomps and circumstance that needs to happen where you're like, I'm breaking up with you, or like, you're no longer my friend. Like my daughter talks about it when she's 3 years old, and, somebody took away her toy and she's like, that was not my friend anymore. Cause whatever, they have this very distinct black and white separation. But it's just, I think that there's a self-realization that should happen. And I look at it more on the positive side, less on the negative side, but more on the positive side. Is like, if you think about somebody or someone crosses your mind and your first instinct is like, man, that doesn't feel right. I feel like I really should reach out, or I've been meaning to reach out, or blah, blah, blah. Like that, those are the feelings I lean into and say, hey, we need to reach out, because life happens. Traffic happens. Somebody, something happens, and then you get distracted or anything. We all have that kind of attention span issue now. And so if you don't do it right then and there, or if you're not one of those kind of people who sets a reminder or whatever it is, all likelihood you're just going to forget to do that. And it's going to go another 6 months or however long before that person crosses your mind again. So anyways, that to me is something that I've really tried to work on with myself.
No, that's good. And just by how you're sharing now, it's clear that you have a really big heart for people. What do expressions of that heart for people look like in your life now?
It's just empathy, man. I think I try to instill this in my children, in this age is, I remember reading something. I grew up a single mother with a single mother, and she was everything. And she's the most incredible person in my life. Well, actually, her and my grandmother. So her mother was also amazing. And I named my restaurant Wu Chao after my grandmother, because, the two of them raised me and my sister. And there's a quote that I remember reading that was saying something along the line there, like, a mother is someone that puts a jacket on their child when they're cold. It's this notion of checking on others first, making sure that somebody is taken care of first, because you can empathize with, what somebody else is going on in their life or whatever it is. And I think that is something that takes practice. I think that when you come into a room, it takes practice to say that if you're hungry and you're making something to eat, that you check kind of everyone in the room and ask if anybody else is hungry. Do you want me to make anything for you? I think it takes practice for our kids. That's like, if he gets in the fridge and pours himself a drink, that if there's somebody else in the room, you ask, would anybody else like, a coffee? I'm making a coffee. Would anybody else like coffee? And try to extend that. And what that does is, I think that creates this flow, right? This creates this energy flow that is like, if I do that, and then they do that, and then I do that, and then they do that, and it creates this kind of where everyone's constantly looking out for each other.
That's community, right?
That's community. And I think that, and as you get good at that and you get further out, then it starts to get really cool, because then it's not just your immediate family. Then it's like, hey, you know what? We made a big dinner, instead of having these leftovers that are going to end up maybe getting eaten, maybe getting thrown away. It's like, why don't we invite our neighbors over to eat? Or why don't we invite our friend we haven't talked to in a while and we can connect? Or we can drop it off. I mean, there's a couple times we had a couple of neighbors that live down the street from us, and I made a big pot of soup for us in a cold night, and I was like, man, we're not going to finish all this soup. And it's like, it's like, hey, this text says, have y'all eaten dinner yet? It's like, no. It's like, I'm going to drop off some soup. We made a whole bunch of soup, have it. It was just like, why not? You know, like it doesn't take, again, it doesn't take that much effort, and the effort's already done. I already made the soup. And it's this, as that community starts to stretch, I think that being able to think of how do we, and again, it's not everybody, it's just wherever you can, as far as you can reach, you know, and it's like your neighborhood, your community, your friend group, your kids' friend group, and then Austin, you know, or your neighborhood. Is there something that you're doing to benefit the neighborhood? And then you can look at it as a city, or what are we doing as a state, or what are we doing as a country, or what are we doing as the human for our earth and stuff like that. And it's like, it seems so unsurmountable, like when you're like, this is crazy that you can possibly one person, and what could you possibly do to benefit the earth? But you really look at it, if, you know, many hands make light work. If we all kind of did our share, I think we could divide it up pretty evenly, you know, or not even evenly, but divide it up and take care of it. The stronger support a little bit less, and the people who need it, you know, are able to take a little bit more support. But everybody kind of chimes in and helps. And so I think that's the manifestation that I'm looking for, especially, you know, just moving forward with my kids, is just like, hey, when you come in, you know, like the thing I'm honing in on, as silly as it is right now, is just like it's disguised as a chore, right? Which is to feed the dogs in the morning or feed the dogs in the evening. But I'm telling my son, I'm like, Roman, like, I'm not asking you to do this because it's a chore and I don't want to do it. We have other living creatures in our building, in our home. These are our family, you know? So when you wake up in the morning, like, one of the things that you're supposed to do is check on the well-being of those that are below you, of those that you are kind of supposed to be taken care of. And that includes your younger sister, that includes your younger brother, that includes our dogs, that includes your axolotl, our fish, or whatever it is. And this should be this running checklist and saying like, hey, is everyone around me that I'm able to take care of, are they all good? And if they're all good, then I can kind of relax a little bit and I can do that. And I was like, as a parent, you know, there are more people under my umbrella, you know, and it's not to say that that's an obligation, but it's something that I choose as my responsibility. And it's like, it's something that I'm honored to do. It's not a burden. It is something that I feel like that you should be very proud of, to be able to do that. As I remember when I first started businesses, you know, and I loved doing payroll, you know. It was like this notion that was like the first time in my life. I grew up with not a lot. We didn't have much. And it was just like this notion that we created an opportunity that people can feed their families with, and they're here, and we're able to be part of that process on the giving side instead of the receiving side. And as much as people are like, oh, payroll, it's like, no, this is what an honor you have, that this many people are dependent on you, or you are able to provide this opportunity for this many people to live the life that they want to live. And I think it's such a cool thing. And it's a kind of a flip it on its head. It's like, this is not an obligation. It's not a burden. Labor isn't a burden. Payroll isn't a burden. It is an honor to be part of the giving side of an equation as opposed to the taking side. And I think it's just really, it's cool to be that way.
I love that perspective. You've given us a really great picture of how you operate. Tell us just practically, what are you up to in Austin right now?
So much. Dad life, really. You know, it's interesting. Once you have children, I think that the priority kind of does shift a little bit. It never really shifts back. And I think everything else kind of is tinted with this notion of this responsibility. So obviously, you know, you work harder. There's a little bit more of a motivation to do what you have been doing. At least it is for me. But I've been doing hospitality consulting for the last, you know, since probably COVID, which is once I kind of left the day-to-day operations of the restaurants, Wu Chow and Swift's both. And then we opened up a small sushi bar called Toshikan that's done very well. Shout out to Chef Sane, who's really taken it and ran with it. My business partner, Paul, on that one. Once I left the day-to-day operations, when the restaurants were all in danger of shutting down everything for the pandemic, as we were coming back, people were kind of asking for advice and for help. How are you getting back, or what are we doing? How are we doing this, and yada yada. And as it kind of grew into kind of a consulting business, as I was like, well, I can tell you, or I can show you, and we can kind of work on this together. And, again, similarly, I have this really drive to, like, if you're bold enough and brave enough to start a business, like, I want to help. Like, all of us need that help. Anybody starting a business needs that help. And it's just one of those things that I wish I had that person to like guide me along, And so as that started, it started out as just kind of this kind of brain trust of people that were just trying to help each other out. And then eventually some people were like, no, it's actually, you know what? Like this could be a job for you. Like, it's like, we'll be happy to, bring you on to help us with these issues. And so I've been able to do that kind of full time, which is great. And then most recently, we opened up the Hope Outdoor Gallery, which is a long time coming. We had a number of hiccups, not the least being a giant global pandemic, but then some construction hiccups and so on and so forth. So that just opened up in just over Thanksgiving break. And so
tell us what that is and how that came to be.
Man, so the original Hope Outdoor Gallery was out in off of Lamar, the kind of behind Lamar on like 11th Street, it was on Baylor Street back there. It was a foundation of a failed condo project that was like, that's been there empty for like the 70s or something. And our founder, Andy, had an opportunity through another friend of hers that she saw a documentary about some humanitarian crises that was going on, and just really wanted to raise awareness for it, and had this idea for this art activation, and then it had just grew from there as people started utilizing it as this kind of art park, where people would come by and spray paint these walls and put murals up and so on and so forth. And it became its own little living thing, kind of completely organically. It was really, kind of pretty spectacular at the time. I think that if anybody lived in Austin for a certain period of time, they remember these kind of graffiti walls, and you've probably taken a picture there, and so on and so forth. And it was a really cool thing. I mean, again, it became stuff that we didn't even know it could possibly be. I mean, I say I got involved even after it was open, but Andy and I have known each other for 20-some years. And I remember going over to the point where we're literally like going into this place where we're like, on any given day, somebody will be there filming like a breakdancing video. You over here, someone's painting a mural over there. Somebody is proposing, or whatever it is. And it's just this really cool thing. And it was like, man, we didn't even know. And then we knew it was on Lamar. It was like, man, this is not going to be here forever. Like, this is like, eventually someone's going to develop this area. It's a Lamar and 11th, and, shout out to Vic Ayed, who owned Castle Hill and that piece of property. I mean, he held off the development for a lot longer than any...
For the sake of the gallery.
For the sake of the gallery. I mean, it is just one of those things that, I mean, when you're talking about what it could have been and what logically probably should have happened, that we would expect any sort of developing kind of mindset, because he loved what it stood for so much, and the artistic aspect of it, and the community aspect of it. I mean, bought up investors and, said no to however many people that wanted to buy it, and he probably could have cashed out pretty good about it. We couldn't have done it without him. And it is just one of those things that we were searching over the course of however long. I mean, I speak on it like, and it had to been 5 years, 7 years, something like that. And looking into it, and even exploring different avenues of it, going either maybe working with the city, and it becomes a city park, and we come in collaboration with that, and then realize how difficult that is to do. And then we're like, and then so finally, we landed on this opportunity of this piece of land out there by the airport, kind of over you know, where it's just right across the highway, right across it's called Giraffe Pen Road, but it's like, you know where that P. Terry's is right off of right off there, yeah, by the airport. Yeah, it's 5 minutes down the road behind that. And so we found this piece of land out there. Awesome time. We closed on it in 2019. And we just said, you know what? Sometimes if you can't find what you're looking for, you might have to build it. And we found this thing and we off to the races, and then the world shut down but we had this really ambitious kind of idea of creating an art park that has the energy and the vibe of the old one, more intentionality to it. The old one was very, very popular, and it had zero amenities, like very little parking, but yet hundreds of people showed up. No bathrooms, no water fountains, nothing. And we were like, how cool would it be to just have those opportunities for people, you know? And then on top of that, what spawned out of that original thing was the Helping Other People Everywhere campaign, which Andy started, which is this nonprofit that formed out of this notion of connecting creators with causes, like with this concept of connecting artists and creators with the causes that mean something to them, or the community create causes that happen for the community, as well as the needs of the art, the larger art community, and the organism that is the art scene, you know. And it's one of those things, like, we were kind of rebelling against the idea that of like starving artists. Like, that's not a goal. You don't. The difficulty of making a living being a full-time artist, it's not because your goal is to make your life difficult. It's that it's a difficult job, and there's not a lot of training involved. You know, nobody teaches you. You have these all beautiful art pieces on the wall. If you want to try to sell them, like, where would you go? What would you do? Who's ever told you how to do that? And how much is that worth? And how much do you think you can get for it? And
Priceless, these ones.
Priceless, right? I was going to ask you, but it's like, yeah, it's like, but that's the notion. And so for us, even particularly me, you know, my really where my heart goes is towards the kids. It's like, I grew up, we couldn't afford art camp. We couldn't afford, you know, creative camps and stuff like that. And so being able to do that is kind of this cause of this organization. And so then this notion of being able to raise money and help kind of galvanize this, you know, this need, came to this idea of providing a venue for that, an opportunity for us to kind of let art, you know, eat what it kills. Like this notion of being able to say, no, let's kind of disrupt this way that the arts are funded. Like, I think that if we have this venue that we can monetize during through events, because that's what we need to do, or provide opportunities. We found at that old park, I mean, there's people that would like get there at 4:00 in the morning to park their food trailer.
Oh, wow.
Because they knew Saturday morning it was going to be a few hundred people rolling through there, and they were ready. And it was like, yeah, I mean, that's an opportunity to provide, again, an amenity to people who are there to experience the art. And then we don't have to charge them to experience the art, but if they want a bottle of water, if they want some snacks or whatever it is. So we built this art park that has these amenities, that has a coffee bar that you can buy a frozen margarita so that you can sip on a, you know, a frozen drink while you're walking around looking at some beautiful art. There's big giant area, you know, turfed area for your kids, or you can run around with your dog or do some yoga if you wanted to, or whatever, or just pick up a table in the inside area under some AC, do some work while your kids are painting, while your kids are playing around and doing something creative.
Okay, the stonemason sent a PDF. The plumber wants a check. Wait, who is Dave on Venmo? Is that the woodworker or the tool rental? Oh my gosh. Stop playing forensic accountant with your own renovation. With Loyal, you get one consolidated invoice. We manage the vendors and the paperwork. One bill, zero confusion, Loyal Home Concierge.
All of that is just this intentional idea of this evolution of this organic, just random walls that people would paint and decorate, not decorate, but create on. And we just decided to do it. And then I think the iconic thing that we did was, as we were designing it, our architects and everything, we always had this vision of a circular building. There's power there, in my opinion. There's something very symbolic and very powerful about a circular building, and it's and then we were like, well, we have the O already. It's like, well, let's just get the HP&E, and it's like, and then so like as you're flying over from the airport, it spells hope from the sky, like the building itself says hope.
We'll find out next week. I'm gonna be like,
yeah, look for it. Yeah, it's it's just something that we were like. Like what other better way to welcome somebody or send somebody off to Austin is to send them off with hope, like welcome them in with hope. And that word is just, like I said, without being too cheeseball, it's such a powerful word to us. It's such something that I think that we need more than anything. And it's something that, that provides fuel and provides motivation for a lot of people to go out and live or to do what they do on a day-to-day basis. And so we put a lot of strength behind that notion. And again, right now it's just getting started. The murals are starting to pop up. We see families out there, and we see people, some incredible art that has gone up on those walls already. The difference for us now, the only pivot that came from the original space, is that there are some walls on the interior of the park that are curated, that we want to encourage some of our local artists, these professional artists, to come and paint and do a mural or a piece that's going to live for a minute, But all of the exterior walls and all of there's little areas around the park itself that has the opportunity for anybody to come and paint, just like the old park. All of my children, my youngest one at the time is not old enough, but 3-year-old and my 13-year-old both picked up a paint can for the first time, and they were able to make their mark on the wall, and it was really cool. It got me all kind of misty-eyed when I saw them, painting their first little smiley face on the wall, whatever it is, and it was really cool. And what's cool about it also is, like, I know, like I talked about before, like I know that at this point in my life, like I'm not gonna have a piece in the Louvre, it's probably not gonna happen, but you can come here and you can participate in this community. You can see the evolution of how good you can get. Some of this art is incredible. But then you kind of, somewhere in the back of your head, you should remember that they picked up a can of paint or a paintbrush for the first time sometime. And it probably didn't look like this. And this notion of being able to be a part of that, in that, like, immediately to be kind of part of that community is really cool to me. Like, I feel like it's just one of those things that I think that a lot of times in the creative space, a lot of people are paralyzed by this notion of, like, I'm not good enough, right? This kind of like, you cook at home, but then if I'm like, hey man, this is really good, and then I'm like, you show up in a restaurant and you're like, no, what are you talking about? Like, this is not that good. And you're like, well, why not? I think it's good. Maybe other people think it's good. Maybe you should open a restaurant. But this notion of, like, nah, I'm not going to do that. Or you're strumming along on a guitar or whatever it is, and you're like, man, it's really good. You should record that and you should play it. Like, I can't do that. There's people are paralyzed with this thing of being nervous about creating, and I think it should be the opposite. I think that people should be encouraged to create, and I think that we should provide a space for people to feel welcome to create. And I think that all of these creative industries have the opportunity for you to do that. I think that that's one huge positive of the social media world that we live in now, is that your junior production can look very professional at your home, and you just kind of taught yourself how to do it. Whereas, 15 years ago, for me to buy a bunch of recording equipment would have been a several 5-digit investment, or maybe even more than that. And the idea of, like, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to go and film a short film And you're like, are you nuts? Like, how much that's going to take? But nowadays, there's people that are making some incredible films using their iPhone. They're using a little lav mic that they found online and stuff like that. And so now technology and these opportunities are allowing people to kind of break into this creative space quickly. And I was like, and then that really motivated me to be like, no, I think that this is what people need, is this opportunity to kind of get some of this out, this creative energy, and to be told that you should create. Go, like, create. We're not in this world just to suck in, like just to take. It's like we should create, we should give, and participate in that. And I think that that's just really, I don't know, sometimes really motivating for us. So there's that. The restaurants are still there. It's really hard to promote a 13-year-old restaurant. It's almost like people like, oh, it's like, I love that place. I was like, when's the last time you went? I think I went for my 10th wedding anniversary 7 years ago. Whatever. Like, oh my gosh. But it's interesting. We see that so much. I have a good friend of mine that owns a number of restaurants down in Beaumont, Frankie. Shout out Frankie. And then he talks about how it's funny because there'll be some social media post about a restaurant that's shutting down. And then there's this mobilization. Everyone's like, go support, go there and send them off and show them, that we love them. And you're like, man, that might be too little too late. You should have been doing that over the last 6 months. But now they're going to have the best weekend of their life and they're going to run out of everything. And then they're still going to shut down because they weren't able to renew their lease or whatever number of things. It's like, go support. It's just like earlier what we talked about. When you call somebody that you care about, man, go support your local businesses. Go this. That's why I suggested Teal House. I'm like, go support if you can. Go support. And we are all trying our best to make it out here. And so for us, the restaurants, my pivot with them is we are now ingrained 13 years in one, 10 years at the other, and we're part of the community. And so I'm just searching for ways to give back to the community, and trying our best to just, now that the community has proven that they care about us, that I think they enjoy our product, they enjoy what we give. Now it's time for us to be a part of it. And I mean, I don't know if you saw a couple months ago when all the SNAP benefit issues were going around, and I said, we're saying, and I'm so blessed to have a team that cares like I do. And at the 11th hour, it's like 11 o'clock at night before the deadline, I just sent a text out and I was just like, hey guys, what can we do? Can we help in any way? And they're like, what do you think, CK? And I'm like, man, I don't know. I feel like people are just going to need food. And we're like, let's do it. And then we thought about this. We came up with this idea called Family Meal, which is what restaurants we do before our shift. Before we start working, somebody in the kitchen cooks family meal for all of us, and we sit down and eat together before we work this 8-hour shift and feed everybody. But we get fueled up. It's an opportunity for us to kind of just relax, break bread a little bit, and then get off to the races. And then this notion of how do we provide meals to people with dignity? A lot of these people most of these people were forced into this situation, if not all. It wasn't anything of their doing necessarily. How do we give them dignity so it's not like they're waiting in line at a soup kitchen or something all of a sudden, or how are we just giving them some catharsis and some healing of just being able to share a meal outside, as it shouldn't be a luxury necessarily to do that. It shouldn't be something that people cannot do on a regular basis because things have gotten so expensive. And so we just figured out we're like, look, we're just going to offer family meal to everybody. And then we just, for about a month, if you came into the restaurant and told them you're there for family meal, we sat you down and we just fed you. No charge, no cost. I don't know how many people total we fed, maybe a couple hundred, but I mean, it's just something that I'm like, I think that more people we could have all done that. We could have, if we all just picked up that slack, I think that we would, like, a lot of people would have been really benefited from that. And again, no shade on anybody who didn't do it. I'm just saying, like, I'm really thankful that we have a team of people that got it right away. Not a single one, not even the partners on the financial side were like, CK, what are you talking about? It was like, let's figure it out. Let's do it. I'm in, and so it was a really powerful moment for me, at least, to know that I'm surrounded by the right people, because everybody just really kind of got it, and everyone was like, no, we need to do something. It doesn't matter if we fed one person, that person left in a better situation than they arrived, and we'll do that.
Man, I admire that. I've seen a need and jumping right in to fill it. You're just, with your natural embodiment of spirit of hospitality, caring for people, I'm really grateful that you found the hospitality industry.
Yeah.
And been able to, really exercise that natural gifting that you have. Your path to hospitality is pretty wild, like your kind of career journey. I want to walk through your story a little bit with folks, because it's just as unconventional. Maybe start with wherever you think is appropriate, maybe high school, like kind of where you think you were going, and then let's walk through that journey.
It's actually pretty cool. It's a pretty quick jump. And what I mean by that, a lot of it happened in my adulthood. And so as a child, it's I think a pretty standard immigrant story, which was you can be anything you want as long as it's a doctor. And as long as it's a doctor, lawyer, engineer. That's what, anything you want. The world's your oyster as long as you're one of these things. And somewhere I heard that, and either in a level of rebellion or a level of just some sort of nuance, I was like, I'll be a vet. I had this fascination, and I still do. I have a love for animals and all these the living creatures of the world, and I was like, man, I'll be a vet. And I had to be 4 or 5 years old. That was a toddler. And I locked in, put that on a shelf, and never thought about it again. My whole path was to go be a vet. That was it. As I said, I was going to be a vet, and I was going to be a vet. All the way to even picking a college, picking my major. I was in BIMS, biomedical science, and I was doing a couple of years of trying to be a vet. And then, somewhere in that, around my sophomore year, about 2 years in, I was like, you know what? I should probably go work at a vet clinic and just get some on-the-job training.
Good idea.
To see it, And then I went, and I didn't like it. I volunteered. I didn't get a job there. I volunteered. They weren't hiring anything. I just asked, hey, can I come in and help and clean up and, just do whatever you need, walk the dogs, whatever you need me to do. Super sweet clinic. It wasn't anything that they did. It was just, I think I just had this vision of what a vet was going to be. And it was a lot more, it felt a lot more transactional, and it could have been just this clinic, but it just felt a little bit more of like very routine. And I don't think, and it just somewhere along the line, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I think that I probably wanted to work at a zoo, I think maybe a zoo vet or even a zoologist, or like this kind of Steve Irwin type person or something. I think, I don't know. I don't know what exactly. But yeah, I think that's kind of where it was. And and it was a lot of like, checkups and random injuries that were kind of human caused. A dog ate a bunch of chocolate. What would I do? Or he cut himself for trying to get out from our backyard, and blah blah blah. And it wasn't. Again, there's nothing wrong with it. I think it just kind of deflated this vision I had of out there, like saving the whales or whatever. And so then, right at that time, I was doing a lot of work with the Boys and Girls Club and PALS and Big Brother, Big Sister programs and stuff at the school. And even during the summertime, I was a counselor at a couple church, youth camps. And I just realized that, working with children was very, very inspirational to me. It was something that I felt was an interesting position for me, because I've always felt a little bit of a jack of all trades and kind of master of none. And what I mean by that is, like, I played in the symphony when I was in middle school and in high school. I've made it to a certain degree. I got to Allstate or whatever it was, but never became a professional on that. I can sketch and draw, but it's not. I never consider myself a professional in that. I can play a little guitar. I can do. I just really kind of dabbled in a little bit of everything. And to a professional, it's very kind of middling, but to a third grader, it's kind of like magic. It's kind of like this, Mr. Chin can kind of do anything. It's kind of a cool thing. And it's very inspirational. I had a couple people in my life in my elementary school days, Mr. Pachot and Miss LeBlanc and Mr. Impastato. Like, I still remember these names because it just seemed like they were so smart. Like, they're smarter than any human I've ever envisioned. And that they could just, any question, they couldn't stump them. I'm sure my questions weren't hard, but it just seemed like it seemed very magical at the time. And it was just one of those things that I recognize that I was like, man, this would be kind of a cool thing to continue on that route and to kind of work with kids on a professional level. And so I shifted over to elementary education, and that was like, I'll go be a teacher, and then finished that out. And then reality kicked in as a lot of kind of philanthropic or altruistic thoughts. The moment we try to figure out how to turn it into a job, it gets a little messy. It gets a little bit kind of tinted weird. It was like this notion of like, should I go teach in neighborhoods that need me the most, or should I look for a really good job and go teach at some private school in some really nice neighborhood? Like, that became a struggle. That became something that I was like, that I struggled with, this notion. And then, even then, like, I didn't really particularly like the bureaucracy of having to deal with the whatever Texas school board situation that we were going with, depending on whatever an administration was going on at the time, or whatever was going on politically about funding cuts, and how in order to get more funding, we had to do this or do that or do this or do that. And it just like any other job, you could have a good or bad boss. I remember my student teaching when I had the mentor teacher that I was assigned to. I don't even remember her name. It was really eye-opening because I really believed that maybe she didn't like kids.
That could be a problem.
And you would think so, but I don't think it was like she had animosity towards them. But it's like if you were, the only example I could give would be like if you wanted to be a cook, but you just you can't deal with heat, or you can't deal with, you don't like standing up or something like that. Like there's inherent things. And like, it felt like she was very bothered by, and we were third grade, and very bothered by kind of noise and kind of silliness and questions, and wanted it to be very like, regimented. And not to say that that's bad. I think that a teacher's job is to create structure, but I just remember like really clearly there was a little kid that was asking some question where it was in English. We were doing the language arts portion. It was reading or something, and it was reading something about dinosaurs or something. And then this kid asked a question about dinosaurs. It's not necessarily off topic, but it wasn't really on topic. We're talking about the language arts side of it, not the science side of it. Yeah. And I just remember she was so dismissive of this question, like almost like, how dare you ask this question right now? We're working on this. And it was coming from this angle of like not very welcoming to that question. And this kid was so dejected. Like, I just remember it was so like I felt it, and I looked at him and I was like, I got you. Like, ask me later. Like, I'll explain to you about stegosauruses all day, like whatever you need. And I remember following up with this kid during recess, and I was like, hey, the question you had about stegosauruses, and their plates were made out of, one was closer to like a rhinoceros horn. I was just talking about this stuff. And again, this is what I mean by kind of me knowing about something randomly. It's like, I don't know why I know anything about stegosauruses, but I just happened to be able to answer this question to this kid. And I was just like, man, like that, I look back to my elementary school Mr. Pachot, who was my science teacher, whenever that happened, he was so good about, great question, remind me to answer that later. Was just like locked in, made me feel seen, and was like, I got you. We're not learning about that right now. I need to teach this to everything. But that's a good question, or that's a good thing. Let's talk about that. Or if it was a good enough question, I mean, I just remember times, and again, I could be remembering completely wrong, but I still remember it of even pivoting over like, hey, you know what? Does everyone want to learn about that real quick? Like, let's stop for a second, and we can address this question. I'm sure that a lot of people have, and we'll back on task. And it was just so welcoming, and so this question just landed on such fertile soil, and it just grew, and it was just awesome. Anyways, and so I just remember that like took all the wind out of my sails to become a teacher. I was just like, man, like, and then, like I was just like any other job, you have a boss and you might not like your boss. And I was just like, God, this administrative team is just not, I don't particularly like the principal here. Like, it was just kind of like, whatever. I was just like, man. And so anyways, at that time, I was working to kind of assist in my family to put myself through college, and I had a full-time job the entire time. And I needed, because student teaching was a day job, I needed a night job. So I had to quit my day job. At the time I was selling cell phones, and I worked at a tech support, for internet tech support. And I also worked at a pet store. Like, I always had multiple jobs. And I remember the place was hiring for a bouncer. And I was like, I'm a big guy, 6'5", big dude. I was like, they'll probably hire me for a bouncer. Applied, got the job.
Where was this?
In College Station. And I remember, month in, I'm sitting there, breaking up bar fights, and I was just like, I'm kind of a pacifist, but this is not really my thing. I'm not that really excited to go like some of these other bouncers that were like, running to a fight all smiley faced and drinking their protein shakes and really excited to like go and roadhouse this thing. And I was and then looking over, and I'm seeing like, man, these bartenders over here are making a great living just chatting up girls and making friends, and they're making 3 times what I'm making. I'm like, can I do that? And then so kind of shifted over to becoming a bartender, and then from there moving towards managing the bar. And I just really fell in love with this watering hole concept, this oasis concept. I've used this at a couple of my consulting projects, where this notion of finding a place where for a brief moment the alligator and the giraffe and the zebra and the wildebeest are all kind of drinking from this water, this oasis for a moment. Like, let's not all kill each other for now. Let's just drink for a second, and just kind of where everyone gathers. And so it was this interesting phenomenon where I was like probably one of the weird people in the city that had the chief of police's phone number as well as the local gangster's phone number. Both of those people knew who it was. Hey, do what you got to do. But it was like this kind of notion of being able to kind of traverse that line felt really community building, and it felt really good to be a part of that. And so I fell in love with the industry then, and then off to the races.
The landscaper went rogue. He's sculpting the bushes again. And a propane guy is a no-show.
We're not going to make it out there today.
Stop managing the managers. Get loyal. We act as the buffer between you and the chaos. We speak contractor so you don't have to. Loyal Home Concierge. We manage the pros.
I appreciate along that journey, a couple things were happening, like a ton of self-awareness of being like, okay, I like that. I don't like that. I want more of this. And then initiative, and kind of being fearless and being ready to take a risk and make a bold pivot, and not afraid of work ethic, having multiple jobs. So it's fun to hear about your journey. I love that watering hole concept of like the different animals all convening together. I'm curious, is there a place in Austin that you think does that really well? Just like very diverse group of patrons coming in?
I mean, I think that the hospitality places that are good all do that. You know, I think that in its own industry, like
That's a mark of a good place.
that's right. I think that if you can make you might have a target audience, you might have a where your brand is kind of geared towards a specific demographic, but you should make it to where anybody. It's like God, what we were saying. I said this to actually at a church that we're planting together with. It's called Garden. You should look it up. I'll give you the information. And one of the things we're talking about, it's for everyone, but it's not necessarily for everyone. You know, it's like everyone is welcome, but this might not be for you. But if you decide to try it out, you're welcome. You know, and I think that that's the way it should be. It's like, yeah, I mean, if I opened up a barbecue restaurant and you're vegan, that's like, we might not have a lot of stuff here for you to eat. But if I see enough people that are coming in, well, then let's figure out how to serve some vegan items on here. Like, let's just figure it out. Let's see if that is something that I'm called to do, or like, you're still welcome to come in. Like, I just remember, like, you know, our restaurants at one point in time, we were one of the first ones that really kind of, I don't want to say one of the first. I felt like we were one of the first. I don't know if we were, but it felt like not a lot of people were doing it because the feedback was of us doing gluten-free, vegan, and vegetarian designations on our menu, like of early on, I mean, 13 years ago, where it was like this recognition that people are going to come in asking for that. So let's be intentional about it. Let's not just make something vegetarian by taking away the meat off of it. Like, let's do a veggie dish. Like, let's do a dish that's intentionally vegetarian, or doing something that's intentionally gluten-free, rather than substituting out and kind of doing this kind of apologetic kind of, here, you can eat this, you know, kind of thing. And I mean, to me, that's hospitality. That's making someone feel welcome. And I think that you can do that with a yoga studio. You can do that with a gym. You can do that with, you know, a store, a retail shop that whatever. It's like, yeah, it's like you come in and you're not wearing a single thing on your body that looks like anything in these walls, but maybe you're exploring something different. And so you should treat that person with that level of welcoming and say, come on. And then if that's a community that you're interested in understanding about, then maybe you can be part of that community, right? And so I think that is the mark of it. Like you said, I think you said perfectly, the mark of a good community building business or community building place is you can be whatever you want to be, and you should be whatever you want to be. But it's just to be, you can be very intentional, but also very accommodating. Like, I think that you can also be you don't have to be exclusionary. You don't have to say this is not for you or you don't belong here. It's like, no, this is what we're doing. But even if you've never experienced that before, you still belong here. You're still welcome to come, you know. And I think that the places that can do that really well are my kind of places.
Well, that's a good natural segue to a final question before we wind down today. What places should folks check out? Gathering places, restaurants, local businesses?
I'm not dodging the question. I think people just need to start venturing out again. I think the pendulum swinging. It's not even try something new. I'm thinking just try something. You know, I think that this is what I've realized. A couple things have happened in my mind. Things have gotten more expensive. We were told for the last, 3, 4, 5 years that you shouldn't go out to don't go do stuff. Life got busy. I've said before, there's a lot of times where, to me, I'm not competing against another restaurant necessarily. I'm competing against your couch. I'm competing against your pajama pants, like, for you to even do anything. I forgot which comedian said it, but they're like, yeah, thank you for even coming into my show. Like, he's like, you know how easy it is to do nothing? Like, it's literally the easiest thing to do is for you to not do this. And you went out and bought a ticket and went to go see a show. I wish I could remember which which comedian said that. It was such a good bit. But this notion of like, you have the opportunity to, like, I've gotten to the point now, even random work meetings, and they're like, we can do a Zoom if that's more convenient. And I'm like, no, I know it's more convenient. Let's meet up. Because like, damn it, like, connect a little bit. I mean, whatever the statistic is of how much of communication is nonverbal. I mean, 80%, whatever it is nonverbal, you lose a lot of that in on a call or even, I mean, there's progressions, obviously, going from an email to a text or to a Zoom call to an in-person. Yeah, it gets gradually more connected, but I mean, sharing space with somebody is important. I think it is something that we've lost that art of. I think that we were very divided in our world now, in both in every level of politics, beliefs, any number of divisive type of conversations, and we've lost this art of talking to somebody and disagreeing with somebody, or loving somebody despite your disagreements, or being with somebody in that way. And it's like, and a lot of that is solved really quickly from talking to somebody in person, and I think that, so it's not about a specific place. I think you start by getting back together with your village, your tribe, your people, make an effort to go out and connect. Whether it's that, hey, it's been a while since we got together, let's go to a restaurant and break bread. It's been a minute, I haven't caught up with you about your family. Instead of me messaging you on Instagram or on text message, let me call you. Let's go grab a cup of coffee somewhere. Let's go walk Town Lake together. Any number of things that you can do that your first instinct is like, I don't have the time, or that sounds like a lot of work. Good. It's supposed to sound like work. It gets easier if you do it a lot. Just connect. Just go out and make it a priority in your life. I think we'll all be better for it. It'll help our entire economy and our community to do it. It'll help your body. I think it'll help your well-being. I think all of this stuff will benefit from it. And again, it's like, it's a pretty famous quote. It's like, it's hard to hate up close. It's like, if you start to build this community and you start to bring people in to this community and you start to do things. A friend of mine, he owns this, I don't know what the industry is. He makes really cool things. It's called kaiju cuttings. So, and
in clothing space, or
clothing space and textiles. He started by making like little bags for, like, I think D&D dice. I think that's what he started out with doing, and then he's made wallets and he makes shirts, and he's just, man, what a talented dude. And he started this thing called the Mahjong Mafia. Jokingly, the name is so brilliant because there's a tile in Mahjong that looks like an M and an M. It's a bamboo sticks, and it just looks like that. And he just started out because he wanted to learn, and it keeps track of his connecting with his culture and connecting other people with this aspect of culture, of learning how to play Mahjong. And then it just grew and grew and grew. And it's become this community that gathers together to play Mahjong and to learn Mahjong and stuff like that. And it's in the wherewithal, if I came up to you and was like, hey, you should start a club to teach people, canasta or whatever it is, or cribbage, like, what? Like, are you crazy? Like, what are you talking about? But if you happen to love Monopoly and you want to have a bunch of people to get together and play Monopoly, like, why don't you? Like, why not? Like, why wouldn't you sit there and say, look, surely if there's anybody that wants to do this, and let's get together and create this connection moment. And again, that's on the extreme side of being more organized and it growing into something. But I think on the philosophical side of that, it's just meaning, like, again, it's so easy not to do something. I can't tell you, it's embarrassing to say, but I'm just going to hold myself accountable. Like how much times, like, I'll be home, get home from work, got a couple hours left of sunlight. And then I'm like, my kids want to play or something. And I'm just like, I'll just play with them here in the living room, or I'll just let them play with their toys upstairs. And I could walk 15 minutes to a playground and go out there and let them play with potential with other kids, or at least get some fresh air. I've never regretted it ever in my life. if you're doing it. I've never regretted it. I've never sat there and go, that was what a waste of time. I mean, coming out to this playground. But I'm so good at talking myself out of it at that exact moment. And think about that when you're like, how many times have you wanted to connect with somebody, grab a coffee? Like, have you ever regretted that? Have you ever been like, that was terrible. Like, why would I'm never going to call that person again or whatever. And if you did, great. Even then you learn that that's not what you do. Like, you don't want to do that. The person's not connecting with you anymore. Great. That's positive too. That's something that I wanted to chime in with when you're talking about this kind of progression in life. I put a kind of, a little bit galvanized into a mantra or a thesis about it now, but I've always had this kind of mentality. I've gotten so much more joy out of my life when I started removing this notion of positive and negative things that can happen to you, right? Good or bad. It's more of like how I can take whatever that was, and if I like it and I want more of it, to do more of that, and if I don't like it, to do less of that, right? It's this notion of like, it's about how you respond to something. It's about what that does to your life and how it affects your change. When you're talking about how like me having intentionality of finding more and doing more of this or pivoting or anything like that, it's not really that complicated. It's just like, hey, I like that. I want to do more of that. So let me put more of effort into that. Or that didn't really go the way that I wanted it to go. Let me do less of that. But it's not negative or positive, right? I mean, have you heard the parable of like the Chinese farmer? You heard about that? There's this notion of this guy. It's this, anyway, again, I'm going to butcher it because I don't exactly remember every detail. It's been so many years, but it's this notion of this farmer, and he had a bunch of horses, and then one of the horses escaped. And then his neighbor or something came up and was like, oh man, sorry, man, bad, how unfortunate. And he says, maybe. And then 2 days later, the horse comes back with 2 other horses. And then the guy was like, how fortunate, how cool that, what a great surprise. And he goes, maybe. And then his son tries to ride one of the new horses, falls off, breaks his leg. God, man, how unfortunate. Maybe. The province goes to war. His son doesn't have to go because his leg is broken. How wonderful. Maybe. It's like, and so this notion of something that's happening to you that has on its surface level doesn't seem beneficial or might seem negative or might seem bad, that the notion is for you to kind of maintain some level of balance and kind of look at it as just something, an opportunity for you to lean into, or for you to edge away from, and for you to say, here are the positives for it, or here are things that I can make that go towards what I want, or here's things that I can sit there and try to make this not happen as much as because I don't particularly like it. But
and just the beautiful power of perspective.
Perspective.
I love that. CK, this has been such a wonderful time chatting with you today. You've given us so many illustrations of what practicing hospitality looks like. You've given us these beautiful, really low-hanging fruit charges and encouragements to go out and build community. I'm so grateful for that. Thank you so much for
thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Austin Community Capital. This show is a celebration of the spirit of Austin, Texas, honoring our past, engaging our present, and building our future together. If this conversation sparked something in you, a new idea, a feeling of connection, or just a good laugh, pass it on. Share this episode with a fellow Austinite or a loved one who needs to hear it. Let's keep weaving this fabric of community together. This show is proudly presented by Loyal Home Concierge. At Loyal, we believe that a healthy, thriving city starts within the 4 walls of your home. We are passionate about supporting overextended executives, the moms and dads who do it all, and the couples who take life by storm. Because we know that when your home life is supported, you are free to support the ones who matter most.
Your kids, your wife.
Whether you need a proactive manager for your home or a creative problem solver for your next big adventure, we are here to help you design a life of intention. LoyalHomeConcierge.com. Let's make life a little more beautiful together. Stay loyal to your community, and we'll see you next time.